Well, here we are again for lesson number 5, and interestingly, we're back in Australia. It's been a while since I posted a lesson, and I have had a hard time getting to it with all of the busyness of our traveling and getting a quiet spot to actually be able to record in. So finally, we've made it. So here's lesson number 5, and what I want to do today with you all is to work some more on chords. We introduced chords last time. We talked about playing 3 chords together. That's a C chord, a C, a E, and a G. We talked about playing two string chord, C in the top and the bottom, and we can make a little rhythm out of that. So you can just play that with that a little bit. It makes it easier because you only have 2 strings you're working with. You can do this all of them together, so that that's another way you could work at it. And then the other thing I just mentioned briefly, and I want to spend quite a bit more time today on, is putting a rhythm together with the chords. So okay, so that's kind of where we're going to go today. Chords is for the way I play anyway, and what I'm trying to teach you to be able to just pick up a song and play it. Chords is kind of the foundational, fundamental glue that holds the song together, and so that's why we're spending some extra time on it. This probably won't be the last time as well, because I'll be sharing some other techniques down the road that involve how we play our chords. So the one thing I want you to do is to just really get comfortable playing chords using your left hand, and this is what I recommend. Once again, especially after the interview I had with Shoshana Harari in Israel. In fact, I hope you all take a look at that. I've got that posted on YouTube as well. It was a great interview, and she even talked about, hold the harp upside down, hold it backwards. You can still play the harp, so don't get too hung up on the technique. Get more involved in listening to the music that's coming forth and getting comfortable with it. So, if you want to play the chords with your right hand, who am I to say? If it feels more comfortable, go for it. The conventional is left hand bass and chords, right hand melody, but once again, do what's comfortable. Anyway, let's just take a look. Let's go back to our Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, and we'll go, let's just hum the rhythm. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. So what first thing we have to do is decide what timing is that. So that's a what I'm hearing in that timing is 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So that's what I would call a 2/4 rhythm. Some of you might argue a little bit and say that's a 4/4 rhythm, but anyway, it's going to help us set up a rhythm in our chords. So we go, so what would be a rhythm that we could put into our chord that would match up to that 2/4? So we one, two, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, so that's a simple rhythm that we could put in with the song. So, oops, sorry. simple rhythm. Now down the road we can get kind of fancy. We can still stick with that timing, but we can still the same song, just dressing it up a little bit by changing the rhythm and throwing in a couple of extra notes in there on the melody part. So, but the first thing to do is just to get comfortable playing that chord. First of all, playing the chord, and then secondly, getting a rhythm going with that chord, the chord. Okay, and then getting comfortable changing chords, changing from the C up to the F, C, G, C. Okay, so that's the kind of things you want to work with. And if you'll work with your left hand separately from your right hand, don't worry about the melody to start with. Get the rhythm down. And then you can, once you have that rhythm in your left hand going comfortably, then you can try to bring in that melody on top of it. Okay, so that's just a little exercise to be working on. Twinkle Twinkle is a very simple song, but you'll be amazed that once you get comfortable with that, you're really beginning to establish those brain to fingertip to string connections that will enable you to, when you start working on another song, you'll find that it's going to be a whole lot easier. Now, one of the other things I want you to understand about chords is that when you're playing, when you've worked out a melody, you know, stick with Twinkle Twinkles. So we have C, C, G, G, A, G. Okay? The notes that we're playing in the melody are going to be reflected in notes that are in the chord. So we start out with this melody C, and we have a chord that's C. So C is in the C chord, obviously, but that's going to work. The chord that has the C in it is going to match up to the melody that has the C in it. So now the next note we go to is G. Now remember, the C chord has the C, E, and G in it, so G is still in the C chord, so we're not going to change the chord yet. Now we go to A. So if we stay with the C chord, that's not going to work because the C chord doesn't have the A note in it. Well, what chord has the A note in it? Well, the other two major chords in that cluster that we talked about, the chord cluster, is the F chord, so that's F, A, C, or G, B, D. Well, A is not in G, B, D, so that chord's not going to work. Well, remember, F has F, A, C, so let's try that chord. So that sounds really good. And so what we find is that note that we're playing in the melody is also going to be buried in the chord that we're playing. So we're going to play, and then we come back to G. Well, we can't stay on the F chord. We have to go back to the C that has the G in it. Now we come back to, so that's going to make us change again. We're going down to the F. So F has the F chord. E goes back to the C chord. And then we go to the D. Which chord had the D in it? Did the F chord have D in it? Well, that's F, A, C. No. Well, we said the G, B, D. Okay. Okay, G is our chord now. So, actually G, and then F chord, C chord, G chord, and back to C. So you see how the melody line is has the same note that's also buried in the chord there. So you're going to find as time goes on that's going to help you a lot in determining which chord you want to be using. Now, one of the things that you will find is that let's try Mary Had a Little Lamb. See. E, E, D, 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 E, G, G, E, D, C, D, E, 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 D, D, E, D, C. Okay? So we're going to start out with the C chord because that has E in it. So when we went from E, D, C, so that's what I call a run. We don't change the chord right there. At least you could, but it would be a really fast change. And in most music, you're not going to change chords that fast. You can go E, D. So you're going to stay on that C chord because you hit the D note, but real quickly down to the C. So you stay in the C chord. But now we're going to go to the D note, but we're going to stay on that. So we need to go to the chord that has the D in it. So that's going to be the G. And then back to the C. G chord. So we were down on the G chord. We hit the E note real quick, but we came right back to the D. And now we're going to finish back with the C chord. Okay, does that make sense? I hope so. That's we're really starting to dissect what the music is doing, and it's really important to understand how you're playing the chord with the note you're playing. Now, interestingly enough, later on, as you start playing with other instruments and you have several instruments going, and you don't want everybody playing the same note all the time, you're going to start playing harmonies. And we do this with choirs as well. Singing, it makes it much more interesting if we start bringing harmony notes in. Well, what are harmony notes? Well, harmony notes are notes in the melody line that are actually other notes of the chord that you're playing with that melody line. So let's see. Let's stick with the Twinkle Twinkle Little Star here. Oops, sorry. Okay, so we start with the C. Now we could play a harmony note. If I was playing the harp along with somebody that was playing that melody, I could be playing the E note. So I could be bringing in a little harmony line there that would sound really kind of sweet and pretty in the background, because I would be playing notes that were part of the chord that we're playing, but they're accompanying the melody in the melody line. And we'll deal more with that later on, but I just want you to see that in understanding the relationship between the melody notes and the chord notes, you'll begin to see how the harmonies come together, and that's when things really begin to open up and get really fun. You can start to play, well, let's just, there's a Pachelbel's canon, we'll play it in C, because I'm tuned in C right now, but we'll go. simple line. Well, Pachelbel himself did all kinds of variations, so he started the So that had the same chords going on, but there was all kinds of variations with harmony notes happening there, and actually kind of sped up the timing, but it was still the basic timing. So once you get that timing down, and once you get your chords down, and once you understand the harmony of the melody notes with the chord notes, then you can just start really cutting loose and having some fun with the music. Okay, so now another thing that we can do is, I guess what I want to try to help you understand is another aspect of the basic part of using chords, is understanding chord progression. Now, every song has a chord progression. And sometimes we'll have a real, like, you know, with the Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, we have C, C, F, C, F, C, G, C. So if you were to write the chord progression there, you go C, F, C, F, C, G, C. So that would, and then your next, and then you, that would be the main verse part, and then a lot of times you'll go into a chorus part of a song, and that may be, and so like in Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, see, it would be C, G, goes back to the C, F, F, C, F, F, C, C, G, G, C. So we had two different chord progressions. We had C, F, C, F, G, C, C, F, C, F, G, C, and then we had C, C, G, G, C, C, G, C, C, G, G, C, C, G. So that's what we would call the chorus part of the song. And so there's a chord progression for the verse part and a chord progression for the chorus part. And sometimes in many music they'll call that the A part and the B part. Okay? And so anyway, that's just when you're starting to work with playing with other instruments or working out a song, one of the things that you'll start seeing in chords that are written above the words is you'll see this progression of chords. It goes from the A part says, you know, C to G to F to C to, you know, whatever it is, because it changes from song to song. And then once you get that down, you're comfortable with that, you know what that one is, then you go to the chorus. What's the chorus progression? You get that down. So then as many times as you play the song, you're going to play the same chord progression, the same chord progression for the A part and the same chord progression for the B part. And sometimes when you get into Irish tunes and bluegrass and some of that, you keep speeding it up. And so as soon as you have the progressions in your brain and you're comfortable with the progressions, then you can play it faster and faster and faster until people finally start flaking off to the side. It gets too fast. People can't dance that fast. Anyway, another thing that I wanted to do to show is once we were having these chord progressions, then get used to using the same chords in lower or higher octaves. So you're not going to use the low octaves every time, but sometimes you throw one in there. It's the same chord, but it's just the octave lower, and it gives a little more bass note. And if I have my bigger harp here, I'd even go down to the next octave once in a while to get a real bass note in there. And that helps keep the music interesting too. Instead of just staying on that same octave all the time, don't be afraid to come up an octave or go down an octave. Start playing around with that. That's where, when you begin to make musical arrangements, especially for playing for dinners or weddings or things like that, you're going to want to take a simple song and start changing up a little bit on the timing and changing up a little bit on how you're playing the chords, so that you're playing high chords and low chords, and you're playing full chords starting very low and going all the way up, so you're stretching that chord out into what we call the appragio. Remember, I said the appragio is the Italian word for harp, but the harp is the best instrument to do those extended chords on. And the next, so play around with that too. Don't just play just the one chord, but start to get comfortable with playing that same chord. So that and then remember also, it gets more and more comfortable as you've worked out your finger position. So you have your relative distance between your fingers that you're playing, and you just move it down an octave and you still have that same relative distance. You're just playing an octave different. Okay? So your brain and fingertips and feeling the strings as you keep doing this will get more and more comfortable. And don't be discouraged. I keep saying this, just keep playing and have fun with it. It's just a matter of spending the time and getting those synapses in your brain embedded in there. Another thing that's really kind of interesting is when you're starting to understand these notes, if you make a mistake, you can many times cover up, because if you hit that one note that's not part of the chord, you can drop right up or down to a note that's in that chord, and so that can help you cover a lot of mistakes. I end up covering a lot of my mistakes because I make a lot, and most people don't know it, and if you never tell people, they'll never know. And my wife tells me if I didn't make a screwed up face, sometimes people wouldn't know I made a mistake. So anyway, probably the last thing I want to do today is to just help you on my website, calmingharp.com, calmingharp.com. I have these lessons here, but I also have a page called Music from the Psalms. You'll be able to download different psalms that I've posted up there, and you can print out a sheet like this and just begin to use the chords that are on here as kind of a practice for chord progressions, because the psalms end up becoming chord progressions as we write them out. This chord progression is not a regular chord progression. When I go to write the music out of the psalms, I look for a regular chord progression within the body of the psalm. And down here I found an F to A to B flat to C, and that works out really nice into some music, and I'll demonstrate that for you in a bit here. But just take a look, go to the C, and then the A, back to C, B flat, G, B flat, C, and several C's there, and then it goes up to F, B flat, C, B flat, B flat, C. So you can put a rhythm in with it. You could just play the chords however you want. But this is a good way to just start to get familiar with the chords and changing chords by looking at what's written on the sheet. Now, I promised you I would play the music that goes along with that. And once again, I've tuned into the key of F, so the B natural that we had with the sharpening lever up there comes down to a B flat. And so now we're in the key of F, with F being the major chord. So this is what the chord progression that I picked out of the middle of the song will sound like. And once again, it's interpretive. I use the 3/4 timing because it's talking about an intimacy with Yahweh, with our God. And so I thought the 3/4 sounded kind of waltzy, so that would be kind of an intimacy. And that's how I interpreted the song. So just listen how that comes out. Well, that's enough for today, I think. Give you some more things to work on. Until next time, keep playing and have some fun. Shalom.